Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. And today we are here at the Loch Indal on the Isle of Islay. The Isle of Islay is kind of upside down U-shaped, and we are at the kind of top on the inside, and that's where the Loch Indal is at its end. And the Loch Indal has a very special reef about out there, just between here and the Bruichladdich Distillery, and this is the Great Reef. And in Gaelic it means Bowmore. Great Reef means Bowmore. And they actually built a town here that is actually called Bowmore. And Bowmore actually has a distillery, and that's why we are here today. So let's get inside the distillery and see what it is made of. The history of Bowmore starts way back. It actually starts with 1779, where the distillery was officially opened. I said officially opened because it was not licensed, because back in the days you couldn't really get a license because it was not like parliament license or government issued license, but you actually went to the local, I'm not quite sure if it was a lord or something. He was responsible for the taxes in the area. It was the Campbell family. So kind of probably the Campbell were lords, and they gave here the permission for Bowmore to distill whiskies. There were probably a lot of other distilleries here but back in the days, but Bowmore was like the allowed business here, and they distilled business back then. And a guy called of the family Simpson did create the distillery. He was really a big handyman or a big player. He had lots of other businesses as well, and he was really a businessman who was able to promote the whiskey then to be sold as well. He died then in 1836, and that's when the two Mutter brothers actually took over the business, and they came in with a steamboat. That doesn't really sound like anything big, but they actually owned the steamboat, so they could really have the supplies for the distillery be more reliable. So they could take their steamboat up here, unload it into smaller boats, load it into the town of Bowmore, and have it brought into the distillery. So the distillery had an ample supply of coal and barley, so they could really make their good island whiskey. Later then, playing through the ages, and in the Second World War, is actually the distillery was home of the Royal Air Force Coastal Command. So they took into, I think, the Boiler House, maybe some other places as well, but they were actually looking for German submarines to be sunk and defending the coast of Britain. So that was but just a few years, and right after the war it was back to fully distilling whiskey. Some people say they distilled whiskey here, but who knows? If you're with the army, then you're probably allowed to. So that was during the Second World War. The next really big step was in 1963. Morrison Bowmore was created by the whiskey broker Mr. Morrison, and he kind of bought it and created the company Morrison Bowmore, and that really put a mark on Bowmore. He really developed the business. Bowmore was really known as Morrison Bowmore. And if you look at some of the casks, there's still Morrison Bowmore written on there because it's so iconic. And that worked until 2014, when Morrison Bowmore was sold to Beam Suntory. And now the Bowmore Distillery is in the big Beam Suntory Spirits company. And they still own it today and run the business pretty well. So let's get in and find out how the whiskey is made. The malting here at the Bowmore Distillery is something very special, because the distillery still does 25% of their malting on their own malting floors. So it's really handmade malt, all done by Bowmore. And the other rest they're actually buying from a big malter, where they actually also get their barley from, so they get the same ingredient for their bought malt as for their own malt, which is important for the milling process basically. The malting process starts with steeping. So you take a lot of barley, like the grain of barley, and fresh water from the river Lagan, and you fill them into these big steeping tanks, and then you fill it up with the water and you let it rest for 27 hours. But you don't let it rest every time or all the time in water, but you drain it sometimes, let it rest, fill it up, let it drain, rest, and so that the grain can soak up the water, but it doesn't quite drown. Yeah. Then after these 27 hours, it is then filled into chariots, which is a kind of a big wheels cart thingy, and about 100 of them are used to spread the soaked barley around this malting floor, and then they're a bit spread out with a rake and let it rest for 24 hours. This is really the initial period, and we're about at that stage here. So you can see there are, or maybe a bit further, you can see a few sprouts going out of the malt, and that means it is already converting the starch into sugar. And yeah, after that you have to turn it every 4 hours and check the temperature, so there's nothing shifty going on like molds growing or something like that. That's really the quality control, is doing it every 4 hours, and that is really a big labor intensive job. So they actually have a bit of electrical assistance with a malt turner that they can pull through, but they also do in the end with this grubber here that actually breaks the very bottom of it as well. In summer it takes about 5 days to fully malt, and then in winter, because it's a bit colder, it takes a bit longer. That is then 7 days. So yeah, let me show you this grubber here. So we have the now malted barley, but it's still wet and it can't really be grinded down in that state. So we need to dry it. And back in the very, very, very old days, they only had peat here as a fuel source on the island. So they needed to dry that malt, and they couldn't do anything else but dry it under a peat fire. So the smoky part of the whiskey is really more of a necessity, was it back in the days, whereas today we actually do it because of the flavor. The malt is dried for 10 hours over the peat smoke, which gives it about 25 to 30 parts per million phenols in the malt. That is the measurement for how smoky a malt is. And afterwards it's then just hot air until it's dry. Behind me you can see the peat that's just been shoveled in a lit blaze, and if it burns too hot, then sometimes they need to do a bit of a sprinkle of water on it, but they have the process under control, so they actually don't really need that water. And they have a process where they don't use big bricks of peat, but they have it in smaller sausages that produce more smoke and less peat consumption. So yeah, it's all about sustainability here. So they have less peat consumption because of a smokier burning, and also where they cut their peat, they have a special machine that actually takes apart the grass, cuts out the peat, and puts the grass back on. So the moors, the peat bogs, are not harmed that badly. You just take out the peat and let the grass grow, and hopefully the peat will regenerate. Yeah, it does with 1 millimeter a year, so a meter of peat takes 1,000 years. Yeah, so this peat here is then fired, and this is then a very dry, smoky malt grain that is then perfect for the whiskey production. The mill in the other room actually grinds it down to a coarse grist. It's really not electrical or digitized anyway. People just have that ticking thing going on, and that gives them the idea of how many 20 kilo packages the malt mill actually produced. And it all ends up here in the big grist bin, and it is 8 tons of grist. And under this funnel, it is mixed with water and has a a turning screw in there, which is really a mashing tun, the old style of mashing, where you actually run the water and the grist in at the same time and mash them together, and they then splurged into the big mash tun. It's 8 tons of grist and a lot of water that ends up with 40,000 liters of water. What is really nice is that at the back here you have 2 copper tanks, and they were built in the 1930s, and they are really old style hot water tanks. Usually you get the stainless steel welded tanks, reinforced, and that is your hot water tank. This is old style water tanks, and you can still see the old cuts in there where they used to light the fire to make the water hot, to get hot water. Today they have steam coils in there, so they have a heat regeneration system where they get the heat from the stills and they can regenerate it, so they can really work more towards zero waste and zero emissions. Yeah, the inside of the mash tun is actually much more modern than it looks from the outside. It's the first one is a classical mashing, and then the second and the third are semi-lauter, where everything is sprinkled on. And yeah, as I said, it's very modern, and they are looking for a semi-clear wort, which is the style that Bowmore wants to go. They don't want to go into one direction like spicy or fruity, but they want to go more into a balanced direction, which is the semi-clear wort. And yeah, let's follow these 40,000 liters of wort to the next stage. The semi-clear wort goes into one of these wash bags. They hold 40,000 liters, there are 7 of them, so they have quite a capacity here at Bowmore. They're all wooden, and what they want to have with the semi-clear wort is they want to have a bit of a balance there. They don't want to be as fruity as some are, but they don't want to be as grassy as some others are, so they want to be a bit more in the middle. But what they don't compromise on is duration, so they do 70 hours of fermenting, so it turns out to be more on the fruity side, which is a good thing. So yeah, they also have only wooden wash bags, but they are quite big, and after the 70 hours of fermentation with 2 different kinds of yeast, they have about 8% of wash or beer that is then off to the distillation. The 40,000 liters of wash are split into 2 and sent into these big wash stills. They can hold up to about 31,000 liters, but they're filled to 21,000 liters, which is customary in the business. And in the wash stills, you distill pretty quickly until there's no alcohol, and the rest is pot ale to be left for waste. And what you get then is an intermediate spirit of about 23% alcohol, which is mixed with the foreshots and the feints of the last run, so the one that is too light and too heavy for the new make spirit. It mixed in the intermediate charger, which then fills the 2 spirit stills. Yes, they are not quite similar in size. There is a bit of a difference there, but they treat them all the same. Yeah, in terms of what they want to reach is also here, they want to reach balance and complexity. So what you have is you don't have a very fine distillation with a lot of reflux and stuff. So it's more straight, but they have a line arm that's rising, so there's a bit of a longer still situation going on. Everything that condenses in the line arm flows back into the pot. And they also distill a bit slower because they have such a big size. So that's where you see that you have elements of a more fine spirit, and you have elements of a more coarse and more robust spirit. And that what they end up is with a more balanced and a really complex kind of spirit. Yeah, after this then it is distilled here, it is collected into a new make tank, and then it's off to the warehousing. This here is the warehouse number 1, the vault number 1. And the building is actually one of the oldest building in the distillery. It dates back to 1760s. And yeah, that was before it was a distillery, so I'm not quite sure what it was before, but it's a very, very old building. So 1779, it was kind of the original distillery, where the distillery is now. That became later the distillery, but these buildings were the real distillery. And what is really nice about this warehouse number 1 is this wall over there. This is the actual wall that is right next to the sea, where you see the iconic Bowmore written on it. So during high tide or spring tide and big storms and waves, there's a lot of seawater getting onto this wall, and the seawater soaking through the wall. I'm actually not allowed to lick the walls because it might harm me. But people do that, and I'm not quite sure, but it's said that this wall is actually salty, and that means that the whiskey that is stored here has a lot of marine influences and influences the flavor of the whiskey a lot. So yeah, that's where a good amount of flavor comes from Bowmore. There are more warehouses. They have another 2 warehouses more inland inwards. They call them warehouse number 5 and number 6. So where's 2, 3, and 4? But so they have 3 warehouses here on the island with about 20,000 casks on the island, and they are mainly bourbon barrels. So yeah, most of the stuff gets into bourbon barrels, but they have a high sherry cask influence as well. So about 20-25% of the casks are sherry casks. And what is very nice is that they have a good connection to a Spanish cask company, let's say it that way, and they get Spanish oak barrels. So it's not this new American oak sherry cask, but really European sherry oak casks. And also, when you look around the warehouse, especially in warehouse number 1, there's a lot of funny cask lying around here. I can show you one clip where we see the Misonara cask with that has been recast from 20-year-old whiskey, and now it's getting into a Misonara cask. I'm really excited about that one. I'm hoping, because I do love the Misonara cask, but I know they're quite expensive and rare. So yeah, when you do a tour here at the distillery, that is really, really nice, is you get samples drawn from the cask in cask strength, unfiltered, not even normal filtered, let alone chill filtered. So unfiltered whiskey. And this one is now from a big sherry cask, 100% sherry cask matured. Is just lovely. Oh, that is some heavy Bowmore whiskey. Yeah, it's heavier than all of the whiskeys, because usually you have some lighter bourbon barrels in there as well. But I love it. Yeah, so that's how the whiskey here at Bowmore is made. And now let's try some of this whiskey. So this was it with the production, and now we're having a little English interview. So I'm sitting here with David Turner.
Hi,
you have been for 32 years in the distillery, and you started off as a warehouse man. Nice. So you really worked yourself up here.
Yep, I left school when I was 16 on the 4th of June 1990.
Okay.
I went to work in the warehouses, then I progressed into the malt barns, then into the mash house, then into the still house, and I became the head distiller in 2006, and I became the distillery manager in 2012.
That is such a great career that you just work yourself up. So yeah, thank you very much for having us here at the distillery.
Oh, you're welcome. Good to see you.
It's a very lovely place. You have a very scenic place, a lot of history. It's just amazing.
Yeah, Bowmore is the second oldest in Scotland, and we're the oldest distiller in Islay. We date back to 1779.
Oh yeah.
And currently we're 44 year old, and we've only, Suntory is currently the 7th owner, so it hasn't changed hand many times over the years.
Yeah, it's just continuously open, and I love that, because there's so much Bowmore out there.
Yeah.
And I love your warehouse when you just look and like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So what are we having today?
We've got the core range, some of the core range. We've got the 12-year-old, which is our biggest and best seller. Then we've got the 15-year-old, and then the 25.
That is still close.
So our core range is mainly 4 bottles. It's 12, 15. We don't have the 18 today, and the 25. So they're the kind of standard core range.
Do you want to
bottles.
pour or should I?
Yeah, on you go.
I already had them, but they always taste different at the distillery. They always taste different at the distillery. Is there any Bowmore out there without a sherry influence?
Yep. The number 1, which was part of the core range up until not that long ago, was fully matured. The small batch was before the number 1. It was bourbon matured as well. We've also got the 15-year-old for global travel retail, GTR, at the airports and ferries. It's fully matured in bourbon.
Okay, but for me, Bowmore is always that mild smokiness and that sherry. It's just I think I had a 18 for a long time when I was a bit younger, and had that bottle for a long time, and it was just amazing.
Yeah. So the 12-year-old is a marriage of bourbon and sherry. This one's got first fill and second fill bourbon barrels and Oloroso sherry in the marriage for the 12-year-old. So on the nose you get the peat smoke coming through. You get like heather, honey. You get like the sweetness from the bourbon cask and the sherry cask. You get the fruity notes coming through as well.
I like it that you're pretty balanced. If you think about Islay, usually you think about peat monster and heavy and medicinal. This is pretty balanced between what you said.
Bowmore is balanced on Islay.
Yeah.
When people think about Islay whiskies, they always think you're really peaty. But coincidentally, Bowmore sits in the middle of Islay. So our peating levels is between the north and the south. So we see ourselves or call ourselves a perfectly balanced or a midly peated Islay whisky.
But I like the heathery and the flowery touch to it. Almost
Slightly
feels
zesty as well.
Almost feels a bit like heather bog in the summer minus the midges.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Have a wee taste.
Cheers.
You get the kind of the lemon zesty coming from the bourbon that's in the maturation as well. Then you start to get the heavier flavours coming through from the Oloroso and the casks that's in there as well, like the chocolatey, the raisin sultanas coming through there as well.
When you have it in your nose, it's quite fruity and floral, and has a bit of smokiness in there as well. But when you have it in your mouth, it's just full volume, chocolatey.
Yeah.
That
pretty complex.
Is that European oak in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have that. Your Oloroso is exclusively Spanish oak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I love that, and it has that hefty, almost bittersweet already. A little bit like what is that?
Slightly salty as well. After it's been in your mouth for a wee while, the top of your mouth dries like that's like the maritime, the Atlantic sea salt in it as well.
Nicely balanced whiskies, but with Bowmore, I love it that you have such a nice core range. And then you have a lot of older bottlings, a bit of special bottlings. I can still remember that legend thing going on. So how is what are your plans for the range in the future? Is there anything like a plan to go anywhere?
There's not much changes coming in the future. We'll always have our core ranges, and we'll also have the limited editions and from the future releases coming through as well.
So you more or less stay the same. But I've seen the warehouse. Do you have some special things
We've
going
got some
on?
special stuff. We'll have limited releases going forward, like we have done in the past as well. And we've got good age stocks as well. We've got cask maturing in our warehouse up into the oldest we've got just now in Islay is 1958. So we've got good age stocks dating all the way back.
58, that is old.
Yeah.
So when was the time when you stopped selling to the blend industry? So is that
2002 was the last year, so we became a single malt specialist in 2003.
Ah, okay. So in a bit more time, we're gonna see a bit of a relief for the 25 maybe, because
we've got good age stocks maturing, so we should have good stocks for the future.
Nice. So the 15, It's no longer the Marina or the darkest.
No, it's still the same recipe as the darkest, but we just dropped the
Okay.
name darkest off it.
Okay.
So the 15-year-old has been matured in bourbon casks for the first 12 years and been finished for Oloroso in the last 3 years. So if you have a look at this one, you can see, although it's been the 12 years in bourbon, it's taken up the colours from the Oloroso casks as well. It's been finished in for 3 years.
Okay, so it's finished then.
This one,
that is
on the
nutty.
nose, you get like caramel, toffee, creaminess coming through there as well. What you find in Bowmore, as it gets older, from the 12 to the 15, after 15, the peat smoke kind of dies down or camouflages out. The ripe fruits are in the younger expression, start turning into tropical as we get towards the over 18 towards 25. So as the peat smoke dies out, the fruits change from ripe to tropical as well.
Oh yeah, I find this one has also a bit of a nutty note to it.
Yeah.
It really
Slightly
has that
nutty.
mark from the Oloroso
Yeah,
in there.
totally. Yeah. The
And that-
Oloroso's
that-
influence it. The first fill Oloroso, so they're really active. So they've taken on a lot of colour and a good bit of flavour. Although you get the two distinctive distillery characters from the bourbon, so the true Bowmore character is still in here as well. This was more creamy. It coats your tongue, then the kind of fruits explode off your tongue. There's not so much peat smoke in this one. You can see there's slightly less peat smoke than the 12-year-old. As it gets older, the peat smoke dies out. But it's kind of nutty, kind of sweet, quite dry from the sherry as well.
When you have the
And then
texture in your mouth.
Yeah,
it's
and then
amazing.
the fruitiness starts to come through with a distinctive Bowmore smokiness in the background.
Oh yeah, I love it. But still, it has a lot of smokiness. I had most of my old whiskies that I've tried are from Bowmore. It's just Black Bowmore and and another. I think it was independent bottling from Bowmore. And now what was the 52 that you just brought out?
The Ark.
The Ark. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was amazing.
Aye,
But-
so when you get past kind of 15, 18,
Yeah.
when you go to Black Bowmore, the peat smoke has totally died down or camouflaged in the background.
After 40 years, then it's almost a little bit hard to tell if it is a smoky whiskey or not.
Yeah, totally. The peat smoke
Yeah.
totally dies down.
What I really love about is the whole town of Bowmore and your whole community here. It's just
Yeah.
so nice. Everybody's like, when you drive through and everybody's greeting.
Everybody's friendly. Everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
that's amazing. And so you have the pool that is actually powered by your distillery.
Yep, it used to be our old warehouse. They converted it into the local swimming pool in the late 1980s. They opened in the early 1990s. So our heat recovery system, it helps to heat the local swimming pool. They pump water over, it goes through heat exchanger, and it becomes back hot to go through their heat exchanger. It heats the water in the swimming pool, and it also helps to heat the air in the swimming pool.
Ah, okay, nice.
So we save them, it's community owned, so we're giving back to the community. It helps to save them a lot of money each year. We save them up to about 6 figures a year on energy costs.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're giving back
it
to the
takes a
community
lot
as
of
well.
energy to heat a pool there.
Yeah.
I didn't
So
think
we're
they
giving
have.
back to the community as well.
Yeah, I love it. So do you have like free tickets to the pool then?
Yeah, all the staff have free membership to the swimming pool and the gym.
Ah, okay, nice. So yeah, it's just lovely. But if you swimming in a swimming pool, is it like in summer? Do you like just then go outside and have a swim in Loch Indal? Or is
Yeah,
that...
people swim in the sea as well, but it's good. It's not warm all year round, so the swimming pool's good. The local high school up the road come down to use the swimming pool in the mornings, and lots of the locals use the pool as well. So it's community owned and community used as well.
Yeah, it's good to have a swimming pool in the community, especially on an island. If you're on an island, you should learn how to swim.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always important. So we're getting into the good stuff then, huh?
They're all good, but different.
But into the old stuff, let's say
Yeah,
that way.
totally.
Yeah, you poured.
So this is a 25. The 25 is a marriage of bourbon and sherry as well. So this one's bottled at 43%.
Ooh. But this is a bit different to the others.
This one's light. This one's fresher. You get like slightly nutty, kind of coffee chocolate coming through there as well. Like almonds coming
chocolate.
through.
That's what I got first. Yeah. When you said lighter, I meant zestier, but
it's fresher.
It's a bit. It has that fresh note to it as well, but also like a creamy coffee, toffee.
Totally. And you can see the colour. This is a marriage of bourbon and sherry, so it's got a bit of sherry influence there as well. You can see by the colour coming through. But have a wee taste. This one's smooth, really coats your mouth. It coats your tongue at the front as well. You get slightly floral, the fruity coming through there. Very little peat smoke in the background. You get like nutty chocolate orange coming through there as well. This one's a good one. There's not much peat smoke in this one.
It has a bit of peat smoke. If you like, I have also a lot of whiskey without peat smoke. You do feel it.
You still get it, yeah. The distinctive
like
Bowmore smoking is still there.
Islay peat smoke monster.
No, the distinctive smokiness is in the background.
It really blends in well.
Yeah, totally. There's loads of flavours. It's really complex. There's lots of flavours in there. Also, when you're doing a tasting of Bowmore, it's worth going through the 3 whiskies and then going back through them again, because when you go through them again, you get different flavours and your palate's opened up as well.
I love it. Now that I have my second sip, it's really chocolatey.
Chocolatey, orangey.
Dark chocolate.
Nutty.
Nutty, orange. Yeah. Orangey, bit, yes. Oh, I love it. So I love it. Is it like a requirement for Bowmore to be like, you have to be starting like 20 years ago to rise up at Bowmore?
No, there's good progression for people. No, we take people in, they generally start off in the warehouse, then they'll progress into production in the malt barns, then progress on to mashing and distillation.
Because I think the Eddie that I met last time here, he had a similar CV.
Eddie retired in 2016. He did 50 years service. He started off when he was 18. He was in the Merchant Navy for the first couple of years, and then he joined Bowmore, and I followed his kind of career path as well. He did a bit about warehousing, malt barns, mashing, stilling as well. So yeah.
But it's good when you're like the boss of a company or a production side that you've done all the jobs already.
Yeah, it makes it much easier for when you're doing something, you totally understand the process.
Yeah, you understand how the people work and how that.
You understand how the plant works, but you also know what shifts is all about as well, because the guys work shifts, they work 24/7. So I've done it myself, so I know what it's like coming to work and a summer's night and a Saturday night at 10 o'clock. It's not easy, but it's a good job.
It's a good job, yeah. I love it. I mean, your workplaces are amazing when you sit there and you have like a window and it just looks at Loch Indal.
Yeah,
and
you look out the
beautiful
sea.
copper pots around you.
It's nice to see the sea.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. So thank you very much for everything here around the distillery. Thank you
welcome.
for showing us the whiskies.
Yep.
Yeah. So thanks, and thank you very much for watching. And if you found this video interesting, then please feel free to share this video with your friends, and see you next time.
Yeah, thanks. Keep drinking Bowmore. The best is still to come.